Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
It's rather amazing to me. There's a nutrient needed for your muscles to function, and that includes your heart muscle, for your nerves to be healthy, for all sorts of functions in the brain, creating neurotransmitters for your brain to function normally, for your mood, for your memory, even repairing your memory, not just for your memory to function on a day-to-day basis, but for repairing your memory, for learning, for problem solving, for focus and paying attention, for keeping your liver healthy, keeping your brain and nerves healthy, even the insulation on your nerves, for repairing your memory, even likely reducing your risk of dementias, including Alzheimer's disease. And most of us are not getting enough of it, and nobody truly seems to be addressing this. The nutrient also helps prevent birth defects, and in fact, there's evidence that a mother who gets a little bit additional of this nutrient, the baby's brain develops better. Now, according to the National Institutes of Health, 90% of all American adults and also 90% of children fail to consume enough of this vitamin-like but essential nutrient. So it's like a vitamin, it's not exactly a vitamin. It's essential, meaning you don't make it, you have to get it from either food or a supplement, and it's called choline. It's nominally grouped in with the B vitamins in your multivitamin. So, welcome to my episode. Choline, the brain-boosting nutrient 90% of us are not consuming. My name's Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. You can find all of the Invite podcast episodes wherever you listen to podcast episodes for free. It's for free. Or just go to invitehealth.com/podcast. Please review and leave us please review and subscribe. You can also find Invite at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. So let's get going with this. This is important stuff. Choline becomes more important when you're pregnant because you need it to prevent neural tubular defects. You need it for brain development. But at any stage in your life, lacking choline causes deficits in your brain function. It affects your memory and brain health. But lacking it also clogs your liver with fats. More on this later. But first, let's talk about the brain. Lacking choline leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and steatohepatitis. Lacking choline causes DNA damage, and as you know, DNA damage, if it goes down the wrong pathway, increases your risk of cancer. Without choline, you have poor lymphocyte function, and lymphocytes are important for fighting off infections and guiding your immune system. And here's where we're going today: poor brain function with an increased risk of memory loss. So we're really going to be concerned today with brain health and memory, and if we can get to it, if there's enough time, we'll do liver health. Otherwise, we'll have to do a second episode on liver health, but don't shortchange that, because lacking choline leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You don't need an ounce of alcohol to cause this. You get clogged livers. It's very common in overweight and obese people and diabetics and people with high levels of triglycerides, a type of blood fat. And it can lead to spontaneous liver cancer. It can lead to liver failure, cirrhosis. So it's an important thing to address. It's also a very safe nutrient. I'll cover the recommended intakes and the sources, etc. later in the episode. So let's look at the brain. Like I said, it's University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. They do a lot of great research down there. It's the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. If your choline intake is low, your homocysteine level in your blood increases. Now, homocysteine is a byproduct of protein metabolism. And there are normal, safe levels in the blood. But when it's elevated, it could become dangerous. It could become dangerous for the heart if it's in conjunction with other cardiovascular risk factors, such as diabetes or super high triglycerides or elevated bad cholesterol, things like that, or if you smoke. So, in and of itself, it doesn't seem, for what I've read, it doesn't seem to clog the heart or the arteries. But, oh God. In and of itself, it doesn't seem to clog the heart or the arteries. It's when it's in conjunction with other risk factors that it becomes dangerous. But on its own, it seems to be terrible for the brain. I've read a number of studies where people with elevated homocysteine, lacking other risk factors, had an increased risk of memory loss, depression, cognitive function problems, even Alzheimer's disease. So it's a concern. So in the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, they found if choline is low, homocysteine goes up. And it causes inflammation in the brain, neuroinflammation, and increases your risk of Alzheimer's. Now, according to the University of North Carolina, when you take choline, it's converted to betaine, and betaine lowers homocysteine, converting it into something useful called methionine, which is an amino acid. It's an alpha amino acid. So when people with reduced choline, in their research, they found homocysteine levels were 35% higher. Now let's look at rats. There's a lot of studies in rats with choline, but there's two telling studies, one in the journal Nutritional Neuroscience and the other in the journal Behavioral Brain Research. And in these studies, adding more choline to the chow of rats increased their memory functions, like they did better in mazes, etc., and improved their attention span. Well, you could have a really smart rat, huh? Choline is, like I said, important at every stage to our brain and memory, such as in fetal health. There's a reduced risk of neurotubular birth defects when you have sufficient choline. And oddly, I haven't seen a prenatal vitamin where they add a good amount of choline. In men who are overweight or obese, it improves their brain quickness. In the elderly, it helps stave off cognitive decline. One form of choline even helped the brain recover in stroke patients. Now let's take a quick look at pregnancy in the brain. This is the FASEB journal. That's a very, very prestigious journal. It's the first medical journal. It's the Journal of the American Society for Experimental Biology. Now this is Cornell University, Ivy League, up in Ithaca, New York. It's Barbara Strupp's team. She does a lot of great research. And the pregnant women in the study received either the recommended amount of choline during pregnancy, that's 480 milligrams per day, or they received double that amount, 930 milligrams a day. And this was during the third trimester of pregnancy. Now, looking at the kids at the age of 7, the women who had double the amount of choline in their third trimester, the kids did better. This was a 12-minute attention test. Now, I can tell you many adults cannot focus for 12 minutes. So this is a 12-minute attention test. Those mothers who received the double amount of choline during their third trimester of pregnancy, the children had improved attention and were also sharper at detecting things. Now, research shows that most pregnant women only consume approximately 330 milligrams of choline a day. These women were receiving over 900 milligrams a day. The Cornell researchers note that reduced choline intake during pregnancy can lead to cognitive impairment in offspring that last a lifetime, and that a prenatal choline supplement improves attention and spatial memory and protects the developing baby's brain from maternal stress and a little bit of alcohol to a degree, and in later life helps shield the offspring from cognitive aging, cognitive decline, and possibly even Alzheimer's disease. This is according to the Cornell researchers. So let's go over to Boston. This is Harvard Medical School and Brigham and Women's Hospital and Boston University School of Medicine. They published their findings in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. This is a population of almost 1,400 adults. They're part of the long-running Framingham Offspring Study. And they found adults with higher choline intake do better in memory tests. And this is verbal memory, hearing something, and visual memory, seeing something. It was better if they had more choline. The adults were recruited into the study in 1991 through 1995. Those with the higher choline intake also had lower volumes of white matter hyperintensities on functional MRIs. Now, white matter hyperintensities show that there's some damage in the white matter of the brain. The brain is 10% gray matter. It's 50% white matter, which does all different kinds of things with the gray matter. You need it for communication between brain cells, etc. It insulates the gray matter. It insulates the nerves in the brain. Having white matter hyperintensities is a sign of brain blood vessel damage, blood vessel disease, which is a huge risk factor for severe cognitive impairment and dementias, including Alzheimer's disease. So they had lower volumes. You can always have a little bit. I mean, everybody over the age of like 70, 75 has a little bit of white matter hyperintensity, but it's the amount that counts. So the people with enough choline had much lower levels of white matter hyperintensities. Now let's go to Northern Europe for more data. This is part of the Cupio ischemic heart disease risk factor study. It's 2,497 men aged 42 to 60 when they were first enrolled in the study in 1984. They were brain healthy at the time. 4 years after they were enrolled, they got a battery of 5 cognitive tests. They administered the cognitive test to 482 of these men, and they found that the men with higher choline intake had superior linguistic abilities and better memory. So they were remembering words better, they were utilizing words better, they were more communicative. That's important. Sadly, 22 years after recruitment into the study, 337 of the men had dementia. That's approximately 14%. They found increased intake of choline reduced the risk of dementia by 28%. Even if they had the ApoE variant, that's a gene variant that increases your risk of Alzheimer's disease. But it was not just regular choline, it was phosphatidylcholine. Because phosphatidylcholine is the type of choline used in your brain, and it gets into the brain much more efficiently. You find that in a lot of different foods, we'll go into that, but you also find it in krill supplements, and that's an important distinction between fish oils. It's why I use krill instead of fish oils. I eat fish, but I take krill oil supplements because I want that phosphatidylcholine for my brain. Now, here's another study, but here they're combining choline with lutein and zeaxanthin. Lutein and zeaxanthin are known for memory. They're pigments in produce. Lutein is orangey, amber. Zeaxanthin is yellow, bright yellow. They need it for good vision. They need it for memory. So these are 80 middle-aged to obese men. It's the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. It's the Journal of Nutritional Neuroscience. And the combination of these 3 nutrients, lutein, zeaxanthin, plus choline, led to faster brain performance and improved cognitive flexibility. Now, this is important because overweight and obesity is a risk factor for memory decline, stroke, and Alzheimer's disease. So I'll discuss non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in a little while. What is choline? Where can you get it? How much do you need? So I mentioned at the start, choline is an essential nutrient, meaning you must get it from food or supplements. It's like a vitamin, it's vitamin-like, but it's different. So we call it a vitamin-like nutrient. Choline is usually grouped in with B-complex vitamins in your multivitamin. The preferred form is phosphatidylcholine. In a multivitamin, they usually are using choline citrate. It's not as good. It'll work like for your muscles and your heart, but it's not going to get into the brain that effectively. So what are sources? Ocean fish, saltwater fish. Eggs, It's in the yolk of eggs. That's why it's always important to eat the yolk. It's in liver, but there's a caveat with liver, meaning a warning, because liver is the major site of detoxification. So there could be a lot of chemicals in liver. It's in chicken. It's in some dairy products. It's in some grains like wheat. It's in some legumes like soybeans. And it's in supplements. Now, and my favorite source is krill oil. You could get a really good amount of choline from a serving of krill oil capsules. Like 2 capsules a day with your breakfast, you get a good amount of choline. So how much choline? So how much choline do you need? You know what? I'm going to stop this here. So how much choline do you need? Adult men need 550 milligrams of choline a day. Adult women need 425 milligram. But if you're pregnant, you need a little bit more, 450 milligram. And if you're breastfeeding, you need as much as a man, 550 milligram. So where do they get this recommended amount? What is it extrapolated from? What data is used? Because, to be honest with you, the government plays a little bit of a dice game when it comes to nutritional recommendations. The amount of choline needed to prevent fatty liver in men is where they get this data from. So men need 550 milligrams a day to prevent fatty liver, and that's where the government derived, they extrapolated that data from for pregnant women, etc. Now, NANES data. NANES is important. It's the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. They do it periodically. 90% of all U.S. adults, including pregnant women and also children, consume inadequate amounts of choline. So it's an issue. Now, the tolerable upper limit is 3,500 milligrams. That's 6 times greater than the daily dosage recommended for men. If you get 10,000 milligrams or more, 10 to 15,000 milligrams, which is 18 times the recommended dosage, that's not happening. You can't possibly get that. You could develop nausea. You could develop sweating. So nobody approaches anywhere near these levels. It's a very safe nutrient. And the best form, again, is phosphatidylcholine in krill and legumes and other foods. Phosphatidylcholine creates our brain cell membranes. It creates the coating on the brain cell and gives the brain cell energy. It opposes something called phosphatidylserine, and they make the brain cell work. I mean, I would say, what's more important than that? But it also creates the coating on our nerves, the myelin sheath that protects the nerves and helps the nerves to function. But phosphatidylcholine also creates acetylcholine. That's the most important neurotransmitter for your memory. That's not the only one, but it's the most important one. It's important for learning. It's important for your mood. It's important for problem solving. It's important for repairing the brain and creating new memory cells. It's important for nerve function. It's important for muscle activity. And it helps create memory neurons. At night when you go to sleep, when you have enough acetylcholine, you create memory neurons. And this is important because acetylcholine levels drop with age. And in people with severe memory loss, there's less and less acetylcholine. That's totally tied in. Plus, the phosphatidylcholine is an anti-inflammatory in your brain. It helps prevent neuroinflammation, and it reduces homocysteine, which is highly toxic in your brain. And you need phosphatidylcholine for all your cognitive functions. I'll tell you why. It increases the viability of alpha-7 nicotinic acetylcholine receptor sites. Now, it increases their density too. You have more of them. And so why is that important? These are in your brain. These are receptor sites that are important to cognitive functions, including your attention span, your working memory, your executive functions. And when you activate these receptor sites, it improves your brain function. It improves cognitive function. So I think that's enough for now. I'll cover non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and choline next week in an upcoming episode. And this is really important for you to hear this, because if you're overweight, you likely have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And if you're obese, you pretty much definitely have it, but you can also have it with pre-diabetes, diabetes, elevated levels of triglycerides, a type of fat. A non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and in other words, it's not from drinking alcohol, it can lead to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, in other words, severe inflammation of your liver, scar tissue buildup and stiffening of the liver, cirrhosis, liver failure, and even spontaneous liver cancer. Or it could just remain benign if you're lucky. And choline helps repair the liver and helps prevent non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And once again, if you're overweight or obese, chances are you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Your doctor just hasn't looked at it yet to see if you have it. So thanks for listening to today's episode. You can find all of our episodes wherever you listen to podcasts, or just go to invitehealth.com/podcast. You can also, please subscribe and leave a review. You can also listen to Invite at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Invite Health. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you listen to our future episodes. I hope to see you again. And thank you so much for listening. Jerry Hickey signing off.